Kaveh here, violinist and music educator, back with another lesson in my series called Essential Elements for Strings Book 1. What you're going to learn about today are parts of the violin and also basic violin posture. So you're going to want to get out your book, Essential Elements for Strings Book 1, or Essential Elements 2000 for Strings Book 1. Both will work, and open up to page 2 and 3. Parts of the violin. You're going to want to know that violins, violas, cellos, and basses are made out of wood from trees. And mainly violins are made out of 3 kinds of wood. Pine, spruce for the tops, maple wood, same tree that makes maple syrup, for the backs, the ribs, the neck, the scroll, and the bridge. And also ebony wood. Ebony is an extremely hard wood that's very rare and expensive, and that is used for the fingerboard. Pretty much anything black on your violin is probably ebony, might be plastic, but these parts are ebony. Pegs are made out of ebony. Sometimes the tailpiece is made out of ebony. I have a metal one right here, and if you have a black chin rest, it might be ebony as well. This is called a scroll. It's a decorative piece on the violin that's made by hand. And the scroll leads into the peg box. The peg box does exactly what you think it does. It holds the pegs. The pegs are fitted by friction into the peg holes. And if you look inside your peg box, you'll see that the strings are wrapped around the pegs. There's also a little hole to catch the string inside your peg. Those strings come over this small black piece of wood, which looks like it's part of the fingerboard, but it's called the nut, and that's the last place the strings touch the violin until it gets to the bridge. The strings then are raised over the fingerboard. That's where you're going to be putting your fingers while you're playing. Opposite the fingerboard, this piece of wood right here is called the neck because it looks like a neck, and it's attached to the violin by glue. Here, usually this is all carved by hand, one piece, and glued onto the body of the instrument, which are many different pieces that are all carved by hand by a person called a luthier, which is another name for a violin maker. It's a French word. Another part of the violin, on the top, you have F-holes, which let a little bit of sound out of the violin. They also let the violin vibrate freely. You have the bridge, which transfers vibration that you make on the string into the violin. If you hold the violin in your lap, make sure you do this in your lap, pluck the string and touch the bridge, you'll feel that vibration. You'll also, if you touch the top, feel the vibration continue into the top of the violin. Then we come down here to the tailpiece. This is called the tailpiece, which holds the string on the other side, and we have fine tuners. If you watched a lesson of mine before, you'll know that you can use these to tighten and loosen the string to tune your violin. The tailpiece is wrapped underneath the chin rest where you put your chin. The tailpiece goes underneath with a tailpiece cord onto the button. This is called the button. You want to remember the button when you're playing. The sides of the violin are not called sides. They're called ribs, like your ribs. And those are maple, pieces of maple wood. Top, as I said, is pine wood. And we have a maple back. We also have some other features of the violin, like the C bounce. This is C-shaped, so that when you're playing on the E string or the low G string, you don't touch the side of the violin while you're playing by accident. And we also, on this violin, have, I don't know if you can see that, it's a 2-piece back. These are all glued together after they're carved individually by a luthier. And it's held together in place by clamps, so there are no nails in the violin. A luthier doesn't bang a hammer to nail these pieces together. So if something's wrong with your violin, don't try to fix it yourself. Make sure you take it to a luthier. Now we're going to move on to the bow, and we have the stick of the bow, and we have horsehair. Horsehair comes from a horse's tail. Don't worry, the horse is fine. And the horse hair goes into this part called the frog, which are actually a few different pieces that hold the horsehair in place, also done by a luthier. The frog is the primary area where you're going to be holding the bow while you're playing. We also have an adjusting screw. If you looked at how to rosin the bow, a previous video in this series, you'll know that this screw goes counterclockwise to loosen and clockwise to tighten. On the other side of the stick, the horsehair travels into this tip of the bow called the tip. Yes, it's called the tip. And usually some pieces on the violin bow can be a little fancier, like I've seen silver parts or mother of pearl here. We actually have real mother of pearl on my bow. I don't know if you can see that. It's a little bit glossy. It's basically oyster shell. Don't forget, you're going to want to rosin the bow every time you play. Watch a previous video where I explain how to do that. So I'm going to rosin my bow while you look at page 3. So holding your instrument, what you need to be able to do is a few different things to get set up correctly. And what I recommend doing when you're practicing your position is to stand up straight. And what you're going to want to do, and I'm going to stand up a little bit to show you, is put the violin under your right arm. Remember, we did this in a previous video. Kind of like you're holding a guitar. Remember, your elbow goes behind the bridge, so you don't smash the bridge. Hold it carefully. You want to be able to hold it without your hands, so your wrist needs to tuck under this part of the violin. Remember, the strings are facing out, and the scroll should be pointing to the left side of your body. Violin is under the right side of your body, like a football. Since I said this is kind of like holding a guitar, that's what we're going to call it. We're going to call it guitar position, also called rest position. We do this to get our stuff ready, to get our book, to put rosin on the bow. Sometimes after we get the violin out of the case, we can walk around this way and be sure that we don't drop it because we're holding it carefully in guitar position. The next thing you're going to learn how to do is shoulder position, also called play position. So let me show you in a different way. What you're going to do while you're standing up is take your left hand and put your thumbprint on the back of your violin, right here underneath the violin. This is underneath. Then you're going to curve your fingers like a letter C, thumbprint on the back, and only your fingertips on the top. Get a little bit comfortable. You can hold the violin a little bit inside your palm, but make sure your fingers are curved like the letter C. I got my thumbprint on the back. Do you have the violin? Do you have the violin carefully? Now you can let go of your right arm. If you need your right hand to help you, you can turn the violin this way so that you're looking at the button and hold the violin like kind of like a hamburger. But don't eat it. But pretend you're holding a hamburger and you're going to eat the button on the hamburger. But instead of eating your violin, you're going to put the button on the left side of your neck so that the violin is resting on your collarbone. And it kind of looks like this. You're going to see that your elbow is away from your body. You have a V shape, which is about 60 degrees or so. And your wrist should be straight. This is called shoulder position. Look for a few key features when you're holding the violin in shoulder position, also called play position. Your wrist should be straight. You should be relaxed. So go ahead and tap your fingers on top of the violin with your thumbprint on the bottom. You want to be a little bit wiggly when you're holding the violin, and you're going to turn your head a little bit to the left on top of the chin rest. Remember, never clamp down too hard. So let's talk about a couple things. Where does the violin rest? It rests on your collarbone. Another point where it rests is on your shoulder rest. Your shoulder rest is going to be resting on your shoulder right about here. Remember, the button is into your neck and your head is turning to the left, and the other resting point of your violin is your thumb. So don't forget to be really loose and flexible when you do this. Your head's going to be turning a little bit to your left. Your left is that way. Your violin should be on that side of your body right now. And you want to be free to play and grab the bow when you need to. So after you're done, you lift up your head and carefully, holding your violin carefully, tuck it back under your right shoulder in guitar position, also called rest position, and go ahead and shake out your hands. You're going to want to do this about 3 to 40,000 times before you go to the next lesson. So get comfortable, guitar position. Remember, grab that hamburger with the letter C. Carefully look at the button. Put the button on the left side of your neck like this. Make sure the shoulder rest is touching your body. Don't squeeze too hard here, and turn your head to the left. If you're having trouble doing this, it might be because you don't have a shoulder rest. So go ahead and look at a previous video where I talk about how to buy a shoulder rest, and don't forget to do this lesson a few times before you move on. Again, my name's Kaveh, violinist and music educator. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more lessons like this. I'm doing the whole book, so get ready for more. Go ahead and like this video if you liked it, and type a comment below if you have any more questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you so much. Peace.